Said, learn how to throw a cast net, my son. You'll never need to catch fly bait again.
Well, I never listened to Mom on that one. I learned how to throw a net halfway decent, but I don't know. I've just always liked to buy my bait. I guess that's laziness. And there's always been this big thing about fresh bait, catching fresh bait, fishing with it versus bait that's been cured. I think that's another argument is like Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge.
I think there's a lot of variables when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be cut baiting, I think it's going to be hard to beat freshly caught bait. If you're going to be pulling bait, trolling bait, I think that the cured bait might outdo the freshly caught bait, maybe. But when it comes to cut baiting, as far as my anecdotal evidence, I've had my most success catching bait and like cutting it, keeping it alive until I go to where I'm fishing and then cutting it. But yeah, cast nets.
Look who's on here tonight.
There's old Drew.
Drew Rankin. Drew, how you been, buddy? But
what kind of net you like, Drew? I bet you Drew's an old salt guy. I bet he likes the old salt bits.
Dude, you ain't never been fishing with Drew. He can't throw a net.
He can throw a net.
I've
watched him.
Yeah, I've been on a boat with him throwing a net.
Oh my goodness! We're going to get a little sidetracked here, guys. We got Wade Burdette, the crappie fisherman aficionado, on the show tonight. What's going on, Wade?
Oh, another day, another dollar.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching your man. I tell you what, you got the best looking baits I've ever seen, man.
Oh, thank you.
I see those things you post them on Facebook all the time. That's some sexy baits. I mean, they're kind of most of them are like a single tail grub style, kind of like a Bobby Garland. And that's what I use, little single tail grub style baits. I think what size would you say you produce the most of? 2-inch?
Right now, 1 3/4 and 2-inch. Matter of fact, I took Wes some the other week and he used to go put them to use.
Hell, listen, my boat's been down there for almost 3 weeks and I ordered some lithium batteries. And they got stuck in a hub somewhere, and I was supposed to have them the first of last week. And I called today, and they said, Mr. Rose, it could be another week, maybe 2 weeks before we get them. So they just refunded my money. So I'm on a battery hunt now. I'm gonna try to get Monday or Tuesday next week. So
shipping's horrible right now. Everything I've been sending out, even if I got to send it even 2 towns over, it's taking 3 or 4 days to get there.
Wait, when you're using those style baits, those 1 3/4 inch, 2-inch single style grub. I guess that's what you call them, like a single tail grub style bait.
Mm-hmm.
How are you working them? Like what size line? You use 4-pound line, 2, 4, 6 pound? Does it matter if you're trolling, if you're vertical jigging, or
if you're trolling? It does, because the thickness of the line determines how deep you can get. 4-pound, I don't use it unless it's either the heat of summer or the dead of winter when I want to get that bait down quicker. Especially fishing on down, say anything below 25-foot depth, I want to get down there quicker, I'll run the 4-pound test. This time of year, I switch up to 6-pound test.
Do you mainly troll mostly?
No, mainly I use live scope. That's about all I do.
That's cheating.
Okay.
It may be cheating, but it's a fun type of cheating.
I know, right? Somebody said that they labeled it as like playing a fishing video game.
It pretty much is. Yeah.
I mean, it is, but at the same time, you've got the same guys that's running side scan or anything as far as you're adding to the lure to enhance it outside of using a minnow. I mean, anything we do these days, carbon fiber rods, it's all advancements is what we're doing.
You probably got a group of guys that are very heavily dependent on the what's it called? Structure scan, not structure scan, 3D live scope. Yeah, you probably got a group of guys that are like heavily dependent on that, and then you probably got some old school guys that are like, hey, I don't need that. I'll kick y'all's ass without it. And then you probably got those guys that are saying, hey, they may be a little reluctant, but they are actually learning how to use it, but they're like they can catch fish like the old school guys, but they're not as quite as technologically advanced as the younger guys, so they're kind of in between, and that's probably going to give them the best advantage.
It's like
And then
anything.
you
It's a
got
learning
guys
curve.
that says, I ain't paying $1,500 for that shit. But they've already got a Garmin. Then
Well,
like,
if you were a tournament fisherman, you would have to get it. Like if you fished like professionally and, you fished for money and you were, that you would have to, because that's what everybody else is doing. So
my whole thing is what I made on Facebook the other night when I made that post with, you seen the size fish that come out of Grenada this past week. Those guys actually brought in some 4-pound crappie.
Wow.
That's unheard of as far as catching fish that size. As a matter of fact, the guy in the lower part of the state this past weekend brought in a 4.06. So if it's really that detrimental to the fishery, but yet we're bringing in these big fish, and the majority of these fish are actually getting put back in the water. I know myself, you see me, I keep fish. I put fish in my freezer. I'm not going to lie. I love eating fish. Wes loves eating fish. I know you do too. But at the same time, there's a lot of times I'd say realistically, I probably released 80% of what I catch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what most guys on Live Scope do. We catch numbers, but we put back a whole lot more than a lot of these guys are doing. I'm not going every trip and filling a cooler up with 60 to 80 at a time.
Yeah. When you're using your Live Scope, how many rods are you typically using?
I use one. I keep 2 or 3 on the deck with different stuff, but usually I'll concentrate. Once I kind of tune into what they want, that's what I run with.
So you're just kind of keeping back, like how far, and like you're maybe over some structure. You're using your Live Scope. You're seeing the fish, and you're just kind of casting to them and letting it drop, and then working it back to you.
This time of year, these fish really aren't on structure. They've done pulled off. They're trying to get shallow. They're chasing bait. They're trying to push protein to those eggs. They're all over the map, which is why long lining is so effective this time of year, because all you got to do is hit a pocket of them and all of a sudden have 6 rods go over at one time. And they're all over the place. The way I do it, I go out and basically anywhere from, they could be in 10 foot of water. I've run them up to 5 foot of water, all the way back out to 40 foot of water. It just depends on where they're at and what they're doing.
Okay.
And where they're at in the water column just determines. You can't go too heavy on the weight because you bring it by them too fast. I want to use as light as possible just to I want to dance it by them. And that's one thing like the Live Scope teaches you is more the behaviors that you learn. Like everybody gets hung up on colors and everything else. Really, it's more about presentation than it is anything. We all know if you've ever chased these fish, you can sit there and have 80 fish on a brush pile, catch 3 of them, and they're just so damn finicky that sometimes you can knock them lights out. Other times the bite's turned off. Well, you come to realize watching them that really the bite's turned off, just the fish don't really have any interest in what you're doing. So, and that's what you've got to learn. Sometimes you can't just sit on a brush pile for 4 hours. Catch your active fish, sit there and mess with a couple of them for a little bit, then pick up and move on. That's where you've got to have options. Keep moving. You can't get tied down to one spot.
That's what I do. I might have 6 or 8 spots, brush piles, and I'll go hit one and may catch a few, and the bite turns off, and I'll go to another one. That might have been at 6:30 that morning, and I could leave and go hit a couple more, and then I can come back to that brush pile at like 10 o'clock that morning, and the bite will be on.
Well, Wade, while you're on here, I got a question for you. And I can remember this as a kid when my uncle and them, they used to have a place down at Greenwood at Dillard's. They call it Twin Resort or Twin Rivers now. But, and I can remember back even as a kid, my aunt would be sitting down there crappie fishing and, and catch 10 or 12, 15, 20 crappie. And then all of a sudden, when it stops, it just stops. And I think crappie is the most notorious fish for this, especially when they're schooling. And it's like
they have been from my experience.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden when it's over, it's over. And my question is there any rhyme or reason to why when it stops, you still don't have 1 or 2 or 3 fish that'll bite? You could have, I've looked on my down scan and seen 45 or 50 fish that I could count in the brush and catch 10 or 12 of them. And then all of a sudden it just stops. What does that?
The majority of the time, whenever you've got people fishing from a dock or a bank, you're just out there throwing them, floating a minute to them. And basically at that point, you're just catching roving bands of fish that they'll come in, they'll be lazy. Crappie aren't nomadic. They don't travel huge distances. Yeah. They'll come through, they'll move on through. Sometimes they hang out, they see it, they won't bite it. Other times you'll just be that whole school will move out and then another pocket of them will move in. You come to realize just how many hundreds of fish there are that come through these coves that realistically it opens your eyes to how many fish there really are that we don't get them to bite or get them to commit. Or it's just, I think that's what draws me back to them, is I just love them so much. As far as that type of, you have to, this time of year they're kind of easy, but really you still have to work for them. And that's what I get out of it. I enjoy it. I mean, everybody talks about their bait fish, their small fish, their whatever, but at the same time, they will humble you quickly.
Yeah,
well, I'm gonna tell you, I do it lazily. You know, there's a couple of brush piles. A buddy put me on some brush piles down on Clark's Hill, and knock on wood, I've caught fish every time I've been on them. I'm a minnow fisherman. I'll get me a gold hook, put me a minnow on there, and if they don't bite it, fine. But I mean, I've been lucky so far. I've caught fish every time I've been down there. First time ever long line was with Daniel Skipper, and we caught shit out of fish long line, and that's a technique that I ain't got a clue how to do it.
What were y'all using long lining, Wes?
Shit, I don't remember what kind of jigs it. I seemed like they were black.
Fish stalker.
Black, yeah, they were fish stalker. I think that's about Skipper really uses that brand.
So, what size jig head do you go with, Wade? And what kind of line do you like your line to float, and your jig head have to actually pull the floating line down, or you like a line that actually sinks? Mono.
Usually, I stick to mono. I've tried the braid. I didn't like it. The braid doesn't cast the light stuff that well. Generally, I stay as light as possible. Most times, I'll go a 1/16 of an ounce is as heavy as I'll go. More often than not, I'll run 32nd.
Yeah, that's my favorite size too.
And that's just, it takes a little bit, even when them fish are, if you're fishing bridges and structure and them fish are 15 to 20 foot down, it's much, I'll fish at 32nd and take that couple of seconds to let it get down. That way I can really like move it and work it. You get too heavy, you start getting, minnows don't go sometimes that's what they want, but it's not often.
Right. So the hook, the amount of hook that actually comes out of the soft plastics that you make, do you have a problem with the bellies on those soft plastics being too thick for the 32nd ounce hook jig heads that you're using, the hooks on them?
No, because the hooks that I use, depending on what I run, most of my stuff I have poured for me.
Have you tried the sickle? Do you use the sickle hooks?
I use a lot of sickle hooks. I've also gotten where I've started using some of the mustad steelhead hooks. Just because those out in this time of year in open water, I can hook a 10-pound catfish, reel it in that hook. I can pop it out and go right back to fishing.
So
they're not going to be
the lead heads on the jig heads. Are they? Do you like the painted ones, or do you just like the plain lead color?
Ordinarily, I just use plain.
Do you use the skirts? What do you call them? The little skirt things that keep the soft plastics on the jig head. Collars. Do you like jig heads with the collars?
I'll either run them. They're either going to be no collar or they're going to have a wire keeper. I don't use collars because that's what the majority of the time when you're swapping out baits is when that head splits. And that's what happens when you run a lead collar. You can catch 2 or 3 fish, the head splits, and that bait's done.
Yep.
Whereas I might take one plastic, I can catch 15, 20 fish on it before I think about changing it. And that's just because it'll get chewed, but it won't get tore.
Right. Yeah. I'll keep getting my skirt pulled down, so they say, and then I'll have to push it back up. And some guys I know will actually super glue it.
They'll super glue it, but 9 times out of 10, if they're just pulling, like you said, I'd say they're pulling the bridges down. If they're doing that, them fish are interested, but it's a little too much for what they want at that point in time. Downsize. That's why I've got even with the 2 and the 1 3/4, I still always keep the 1 1/4 inch micro jigs with me. And that size right there, they don't have a choice but to eat the whole bait. I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
You go down that small, and when I do that, I'll drop down to a 64th of an ounce head and put a piece of split shot above it to get it down and sit there and work it. And when you get to that little, they don't have a choice. You just feel that light sip hit them. I mean, that's all you got to do.
Yeah. Do you typically go 64th? You probably don't go down to 64th like in the spring, early summer. That's probably something that you do like in maybe the dead of winter.
Yeah, that's whenever you got to sit there and basically dead stick them.
Have you ever tried using? I know that you more than likely started out like most people, probably on minnows before you went to jigs. So, other than minnows, have you used any other type of live bait to try to catch crappie?
No, not really. I still, even to this day, certain times of the year, I'll still go buy minnows and use them. Yeah. It's just one of those things that's hard to beat. Sometimes that's just what they want.
I tried using wax worms one time, and they worked very well for brim. I couldn't keep the brim off the hook long enough to see if they were any good for crappie.
Well, that's what a lot of these guys up north, ice fishing, tip everything with wax worms or leeches or something and catch them. But I can't ever. Most guys around here, they just use crappie nibbles or fireballs or something like that, just to, I guess, that little scent boost for them. I mean, personally, I don't use nibbles. That's what some guys swear by them. I've never. That's just me though.
Hey Wade,
I use something like the fish stalker, like Skipper uses. I use something like that. A guy locally around here pours them himself, and that's their little small. Matter of fact, when I use the 32nd ounce jig heads, I have to actually bite one of the rings off of the soft plastic to get it to go on there. I'm sorry, Wes. Go ahead, buddy.
Oh no, you fine. Jason Penley wanted to know: do you shoot docks, and if you do, what size jig head do you shoot docks with?
I do on occasion if I find them. Usually by the time I start or look at docks, those fish, if you're not there first, they get so punished, especially those docks that's got lifts on them. Them fish get so far back up under there, you can't really get to them. And I will fish the docks, but if they're towards the front edge, even then, I still run a 32nd ounce just because I want that bait I just want it to basically dead float down through them. And 9 times out of 10, you watch that, that's where you guys start using your high vis line. Because whenever you shoot it and just let it fall, you'll see a high vis line. You'll just usually see that little light tick or thump on the line, set the hook. Because 9 times out of 10, that fish has done took it. And you got to get him on the hook before he has a chance to realize, oh, crap, spit it.
Now, crappie, is it my understanding, crappie are probably the fastest reproducing fish in freshwater. Is that correct?
Well, that's what most people call them, the cockroach into the water, just because that's what they breed so proficiently. That's why it's... Yeah. Once they get it, that's why you tell guys these guys that want to have ponds, a 3 or 4 acre pond, you put crappie in it, it's like a death sentence because they populate so fast. There's nothing going to survive, including the crappie. Really? There's not enough food to go around. They unless you're actively catching and culling, they will take over a pond in a heartbeat, and you'll wind up catching nothing but a bunch of 6-inch paper thin fish.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough. It's like catching skinny bass out of a pond. There's not enough food going around.
Yeah, I've seen it. There's the 161 Moss Lake, the Kings Mountain City Water Lakes off 161 at Kings Mountain. They're full of those little tiny 6-inch tiny crappie.
Now Broadway over there in Anderson. I was going to buy a boat from a guy one time. Went over and looked at it. Broadway used to be known for having a pretty good bit of crappie in it, didn't it?
Crappie down there, once upon a time, they were doing fairly well. DNR and technically Broadway's run by the city of Anderson.
Yeah.
We had that hurricane come through a couple of years ago. They thought the dam was unsafe. They pulled it down, what was it, like 15 foot for 2 years. And basically, whenever they brought it back up to full pool, on top of keeping it down for 2 years, the DNR had the bright idea that they put 150,000 shellcracker and bluegill in there with them. So you're already talking about a place that's maybe, how big is Broadway? 150 acres maybe?
Yeah.
It's decent size. You can drive a boat on it and get around or whatever, but it's not a huge place. But with that kind of competition going on, it was crazy. It's one of the last few spots here, though, that has no spotted bass in it. Just about everywhere else, the bass guys have released those into them. So it's still basically... it's more native than what you get from a lot of these places around here. There are a few white crappie. It's mostly black crappie. That's like everything around here. It's mostly black crappie.
Do you find that most of your white crappie, do you catch them like more? Is it the water muddier? Is there more current? What condition? How do the conditions differ between where you catch black crappie and white crappie?
This time of year, they pretty much rub shoulders. It's really... they just start pulling apart and differentiating more towards the summertime. That's what I tell you. Look at the guys out in the Midwest that are pulling crate baits in July out there 2 miles an hour. They're catching the hell out of white crappie. You're not going to do black crappie like that. Once they've done, they've got their bellies full. They're going to go retire they're going to find structure somewhere. It could just be just that one stump out of a forest of them, which is why, guys get bent out of shape. Like, why don't y'all talk about spots? Well, because out of a forest of trees, there's only one tree them fish might go to. Right. A white crappie, they'll stick to a piece of slick timber in a heartbeat. Black crappie like to have something they can nest up inside of it, or something to hug up to, as far as it's got some, even a bridge column's got some roughness to it. Just something that appeals to them.
Right. So when you're working that jig, that soft plastic on that 32nd ounce jig head, if you're using 6 pound line, I'm sure it's taking a little bit for it to sink, but once it sinks and you actually start to work it back up. So what kind of action are you giving it, and how many seconds would you guess it takes you to do a full reel turn when you're working that jig back?
Mainly, it depends on how far out and what I want to get to them. If I can just get their attention, you'll see on the screen when them fish, they'll see it all of a sudden. You'll see the motion. You can bring that jig, and if they see it, you'll see it on the screen. They'll do, and all of a sudden do this. That's when you've got their attention. Sometimes they run right over, they eat it. I've had them follow it up, and I've caught them 4 foot under the trolling motor. I've also had them, they'll come up, as soon as they see the boat, they scatter.
But you're working it slow, though, right? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually.
Slow. It's not fast, but now there are some guys, they'll rip that thing.
Oh, really?
I mean, that's what I know. Some guys, they'll long line troll it, a mile and a half an hour and still catch fish.
Oh, yeah. It's funny you said that. I've actually caught crappie a couple, and big. They were always big when I was gas trolling for hybrids on Lake Norman with Alabama rigs. I think it was an Alabama rig. I caught them on that day. I remember it was a bucktail was the bait. But anyways, I was gas trolling 2.5 miles an hour, and I was probably 30 feet deep and hooked a 2+ pound crappie, and I pulled him up from the depth so fast it popped his eyeballs out.
Yep.
But yeah, I couldn't believe he actually hit a bucktail at 2.5 miles an hour. That blew my mind.
Hey, me and Kevin Blue was fishing a tournament down on Murray a couple of years ago with Striper Kings. We caught a crappie a little over 3 pounds, and he swallowed a herring about that big.
Them big fish do not give 2 flying F's about getting out there rubbing shoulders. That's what you find out. You're going to catch striper and hybrid, but usually if they're running together, there's going to be some big slabs running around with them too.
Yeah.
They're all eating the same. That's what, as a matter of fact, wasn't it? Didn't Patrick Miller catch that one a couple of years ago? He won the Lake Hartwell Outdoor Center that month with it, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think they were pulling boards, and he caught like a 3 pound white crappie.
Wow.
It was a big old joker.
I got another question. And I'm not sure exactly. I've heard people say it depends on what body of water you're in. But I thought a bait fish, you could not use them for bait, period. Crappie is a bait fish. I mean, it's a game fish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, game fish you can't. Crappie you can't. Brim you can, except for you can't use red breast. Any other sunfish that pretty much red breast and crappie are the 2 that's off limits.
Yeah.
Not in North Carolina.
Yeah, not in North Carolina, but in South Carolina. If you get caught with either one of them, it's about like taking, like you do with a largemouth bass. You get caught filleting one of them up, they come out and they'll fine you for doing that. So,
yeah. What's up, Todd Asher? Todd Asher's watching tonight. First time he's been on here in 6 months.
Hey, everybody.
It's March in the South. Everybody wants to talk crappie.
That's right.
I still got friends up. I've got friends up in the north right now that's still dealing with almost borderline snow and freezing cold, and we're down here running around in flip flops and shorts, beating crappie up in 4 foot of water.
That's right.
So, what's your favorite color, Wade?
Oh Lord, I don't even know if I have a favorite.
Whatever they're biting at the time.
Pretty much. I mean, I've come to realize. I mean, like I said, when those fish get turned on, I'm almost convinced you could throw a cigarette butt at them and get them to eat. It's the times whenever they don't want to bite that you have to sit there and basically it's not so much as color as figure out what size and profile they want.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want more action at the tail. Sometimes they want a little bit more, dead stick it, or that's why I say it's more about presentation than it is anything. Because I've done like I said, you can work and sit there and fool with them. I've had fish, like you said, slow roll it. They'll be 5 foot from the boat, and you can just sit there and watch them. They're just not moving. They're just staring that bait down. Sometimes they'll swim off. Other times you'll feel just a really, really light, just set the hook. Because 9 times out of 10, you got it. It's a good thing he's right there at the boat because usually they're hooked right on the lip.
Hey, here's a guy that's caught a couple of crappie. What is your favorite size jig head, Ryan Spivey?
32nd or 16th. I don't know, 32nd or 16th.
Yeah. We got Wade Burdette on here tonight. We got a little sidetrack. We was going to talk about some cast nets, and now here we are talking about crappie now.
Yeah, I figured I'd get you on some real fish.
So, Wade, I noticed I am a winter time, like, December, January, and I'm a springtime guy, March, April, May. As far as I usually just vertical jig docks, when it comes to crappie, and I catch some good sized crappie. But other than those 2 times of the season, most of my friends, that's when they start long lining other times of the season, and I'm not real familiar with doing that. But so why aren't the crappie on the docks, on the brush piles where I normally catch them in the spring? Why weren't they on there, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, main thing is where the bait's at.
They're going to go where the bait is.
They're predatory fish. They full of bait. They're like no different than bass or anything else. They're not going to hang out and be hungry.
I know Ryan Spivey went out to Lake Norman weekend before last and caught me some bait, and he found the crappie on the main channel. We normally, once March rolls around, we got some spots that are kind of halfway up into some creeks, and he said they weren't on those yet. They were actually on some docks that were in the main channel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Spivey?
Yeah, there wasn't none shallow.
Yeah,
there was, but they were literally that long.
And those smaller fish probably stay on some of those brush piles year round.
I tell most folks, if you're going to fish brush piles and structure like that, you're going to catch numbers, but you're not going to catch quality. That's what usually I've done learned. If I come across, a lot of guys get real excited when the screen just lights up with a huge ball of fish. I enjoy sitting there beating the crap out of them. Sometimes it's just fun. But the majority of those fish, the biggest you're going to get usually is 10, 11 inches at the most, what I call eaters. They're not – your big fish are kind of like other big fish in their species. They just kind of – they're loners. They sit out. Those are the ones you got to sit there and look for. And I think that's why, like this time of year, it's almost like the whitetail rut. This is when they screw up and they come in to make love, and then they go back out again. Outside of that, it's very few and far between outside of March and April that you ever see big crappie come in.
All right.
I don't keep fish at all. I striper fish. I don't catfish a lot. I used to catfish. I mainly striper fishing is all I do freshwater, but I do crappie fish. But you can bet your ass if he's that down big or that big, if it's a crappie, I'm keeping it. Because what I found out about crappie, people ain't giving up shit. They'll give you a bass. They'll give you hybrid. They'll give you striper. They'll give you catfish. People don't come off their crappie. And that's
crappie. That's Papaw's fish, man.
Yeah, that's
Papaw's fish.
It's the best.
They always said back in the old days.
Yeah,
as big as a butterbean, you can cook it.
You don't give up Papaw's fish. So Ryan Spivey, we got the crappie fishing aficionado on here tonight, Wade Burdette. I guarantee you and I have a secret weapon that he doesn't know about.
Oh, hell, here we go.
With a telephone crank? I can take a telephone crank in a brush pile. I can get the whole 9 yards out of it.
I'm talking about a fishing rod. I think Ryan froze up on us. Hang on, let me see if I can fix him right quick.
What's always funny to me is I get guys that message me talking about, hey, I found crappie such and such. I was throwing a cast net and I thought they were big gizzard shad, and I pulled up a bunch of 12 and 13 inch fish.
I think we lost Spivey. He's got a good little he left a good little image there. It's like a profile pic or something.
You can make a meme out of that.
Damn.
All right. Well, that's kind of that's he and I's little secret rod. So I'm not going to, I don't have him here to give me the okay to talk about it. So I better not talk about it.
All right. Well, let's talk about cast nets and bait tanks and see if we
because actually I'm kind of curious because I want to get, that's one thing I want to transition over from is so much minnows is I want to start catching them on like thread fin. That's a big time crappie. They love them.
Really?
Catching and keeping them and using them. That's what there's a lot of guys. We actually had a guy here local. He started carrying thread fin just for the crappie fishermen. I just like to set up for them. I've never really kept food with them except for we've gone out and thrown a cast net a time or two when I was younger. You know, keep a couple in a bucket, just catch a couple of striper or some fresh for some catfish. But that's about as far as it went. I never went to I mean, good God, the stuff that y'all get into, y'all got damn near swimming pools and 30, 40, 50-gallon bank tanks and all this. I'm like, I can't fathom the crap that goes into this because I've never
Well, I
dealt
mean,
with
it's
it.
kind of the same deal, just on a bigger scale that you probably do or have done with minnows.
I mean, yeah, that's what my minnows. I mean, I run an aerator in my Engle cooler, but at the same time, those guys, they're hardy. They're not.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced to shatter a herring. If you open the lid fast enough and went boo at them, they'd die.
Yeah,
all right, we got Ryan back.
They're kind of hard live, but like I said, we was talking about nets earlier, and we found some bait last time we was in Tennessee, and James threw the net a couple of times, but the net that I had on the boat, the bait was so deep that the net was closing up before it got down there to him, and Todd actually, I was talking to Joe, and I told him when we found bait and how deep it was, and Joe said, "If you got any tape on your boat," and I didn't know this, but he said you can actually take tape and tape around right above your weights all the way around your net.
Mm.
He said what that does, it keeps your net spread out longer. For the deeper the bait is, it keeps it, so your nets don't close up.
It's gonna sink slower, but it's gonna stay out. Yeah, so if you're trying to catch bait that's really deep, then your net won't close up before it gets to the bait depth, the depth of the bait that you're trying to catch.
Yeah, bet sells a net like that.
Yeah, you can buy tape nets. I want to say they're a little more expensive.
But it's and still, a lot of people look at their depth finder and a lot of times you don't know, well, hey, is that a big school? Is that, like Wade was just talking, is that small crappie? Is it big gizzard shad? We used to talk about can you mark skipjack, with your electronics. I always thought skipjack. I didn't know that they schooled. I guess I've maybe marked them before and didn't know it was a skipjack. Gizzard shad, a lot of people say, hey, that's a big old school of gizzard. I guess it depends on what area you're in as to, what bait's usually in that area. I just ain't never been big on catching bait. Hell, it took me about 2 years to learn how to keep shit alive. And I'll tell you, Chris Hovis really helped me out a lot as far as, telling me about the bait tanks. And I think the best, in my opinion, the best thing ever come out for keeping bait alive is a Danco. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dancos. I'm pretty sure you are.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
That's the best thing that was ever put in a bait tank. But, my biggest trouble, especially with trout, when I used to overload a bait tank, and even if the trout were purged, or even if you've got cured bait, is what, and I've had this happen a couple of times, you get ammonia buildup. And I think they say you can use, there's some charcoal filters out there that will kind of help remove the ammonia, but just a filter, a regular filter, I don't care if it's a sock filter, a regular carbon fiber filter, that does not remove ammonia. You got to do water changes. But I've had ammonia build up in my tanks before.
Unless you have like you have, where you have the bacteria that actually feeds on the ammonia, right?
Yeah.
But that's not something that you're going to do like a bait tank, keeping bait on a trip. That's something you have to do at home, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I've had bait. I've had bait to get real, get ammonia, have that real strong smell. Mm-hmm. And a couple hours later, it just go away. Didn't do nothing to the water. And I have had it sometimes, you start smelling it and it just get worse and worse and worse. And, and I'm there 10, 11 o'clock at night at the lodge, and I'm hoping and praying that my bait's going to live through it till I can get back in the morning and do a water change. So I've just always wondered what causes that ammonia buildup all of a sudden. You can have bait in there 8, 10, 12 hours, and then all of a sudden it just goes.
I think it's got a lot to do with when they get spooked. Like even when you buy cured bait, quote unquote cured bait, as soon as you put it in your tank, it's like they piss all over themselves. They lose scales. They get scared. They run into the sides of the tank and get red nosed, and they just go all to hell when you transfer them. I think that's one of the times when they do that.
I told you open the lid too fast, you scared the piss out of them. That's what spikes it.
Well, a lot of people, and I think I forgot exactly how that went. Damon Melcho with Extreme, most of his tanks, I think all of his tanks now come with a light. I think a lot of people like to leave that light on all the time, even during the day when their lid's closed. So when they open that tank,
there's no change.
Yeah, the sunlight or that all of a sudden that bright light don't excite them. I don't know if that helps or not. Some people don't believe that, but Damon does. I think all his tanks have a light in them now.
Junior War Scout said he caught 110 perch in 10 minutes with a cast net. He said he's got a 30-gallon and a 60-gallon tank on the boat and a 375-gallon and a 500-gallon tank at home. Need to set them up.
Good Lord.
So what size? You said he's using a. You said you're using a 9 and 10 foot net. What size mesh you got on that, Junior, to catch the perch?
Well, a lot of that just depends too on JR. I guess on how fast you want that net to sink. And then do you using a 6 foot net, 8 foot net, 10 foot net? I'll tell you, I've thrown a net before. I can throw one just a little bit, but those 8 and 10 foot nets, I'll tell you that you got to have good shoulders and you got to be a man. Because I've seen people sitting, hell, I watched Drew Rankin throw one time for 2 hours, and I was just like, there ain't no way in the hell I could throw that net like that. It'd kill me.
Yeah. You got you one of those little plastic rings that you can cheat with?
The what?
You got you one of those little plastic rings that you can cheat with?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they make these cast nets that have these plastic discs in the center of them that is supposed to like help you spread. It helps the net spread for you.
Supposed to throw a perfect circle every time, but I know there's still the times I've tried it, it's a 50-50 proposition whether or not that thing's going to turn into a sausage or a pancake.
Yeah, Junior said he uses a 1 inch on one and a half on the other. That's what I use too, Junior. I have a 1/4 inch mesh ahi net. It's 7 foot. I use it for catching alewives on Lake Norman for the hybrids, and I love that net because the smaller mesh net you have, the more supple it is. It's nice and soft. So when you throw it, and if you throw a 3/8 inch net, for example, on some 4 to 6 inch alewives or blueback herring, the problem you're going to run into is you're going to get a Christmas tree. You're going to get where the herring actually go through the mesh. They get stuck halfway through, and you got 100 herring that are stuck in the mesh of the net, and you have to pull them out, and it kills them. So that's why I use the 1/4 inch for the smaller bait, like your herring and your alewives. But I use up to a 1 inch. I have a 1 inch, an 8 foot 1 inch net that I throw for perch, because you want it to sink fast, because perch are pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of them guys are throwing for them Mongo gizzards and stuff like that too. Because
I've been throwing a net for about 15 years, and I still can't throw one, Wes. So don't feel bad.
Well, yeah. Hey, listen, I watched you throw a net off Scott Perry's boat when we were down there at Russell. You did pretty good.
I tell you what, I throw it good enough to catch bait, and that's, I've never had to throw a net a lot. Like I have places that I go and I don't have to throw a net, but 2 or 3 times, and I'm done. A lot of guys that are extremely good at catching bait or extremely good at throwing a net when they go to catch bait, they're throwing a net 100 times.
Yeah.
So they get good at it.
Well, Todd Asher says he keeps his net in a 5-gallon bucket, semi-wet, to keep them from getting dry, because he said when they get stiff, it's harder for them to open.
Yeah. Some guys will treat them. They'll put them in a bathtub with some fabric softener, some Downy fabric softener, and make them soft.
Well, at the end of the day, and this is just my take on it, there again, everybody's got their opinions. People like Ford, Dodge, and Chevy. I'd just soon to cheat. I do heating and air work, and when I make money. And part of that money when I go fishing is I go to a fucking bait shop and tell them to give me 6 dozen of this or 20 trout or whatever, put them in my tank and go fishing. Because to me, out there catching bait is killing time.
That's what I was about to say, though. If you want to be more efficient about it, going back to the whole live scope thing, find your pods of bait fish. They might be, a lot of guys are sight fishing. They just go to those spots they know to. Live scope, go out there and find that wad of fish is 5 foot down. There might be, a couple thousand of them. Toss the net, one throw, boom, you're done. Go fishing.
Well, I tell you, the first time I ever seen live scope, I was on Anthony Johnson's boat last year, and we were back in a creek down there on Watts Bar, right there below Loudon. And that live scope it's amazing. And he was showing me, he said, Wes, he said, these fishes, and he's looking on the live scope. He said, they right here, watch where I throw the net. He'd throw that net, and you can watch that net go down over them. And what was cool was when the net goes over them, those gizzards, instead of swimming out, they were swimming up in it. It's like it scared the shit out of them. It's like they were trapping themselves almost.
Yeah, they're not used to you coming after them. They're like they're safe down there. Then all of a sudden, oh shit, here they are.
Yeah, and like Anthony said, he said, Bud, he said this thing is far. He said I know a lot of people use them for crappie fishing, but he said this thing was a game changer for catching bait.
That's what I say. You go out, run it, find you 1 or 2 pods, throw your net, boom, you're done. You're going fishing. And all of a sudden, you just got all the bait that you wanted. And then, if you're a catfish guy, you can put some up for later if you want to. It's whatever you want to do, I know some guys use the frozen stuff. I don't, but.
Back in the day, I hear some of the older guys talk about, back in the day, you didn't have bait shops. Years and years ago, the old timers, when they want to go striper fishing or even catfishing, you threw a net and you found bait. And if you couldn't find no bait, you didn't fish.
No, you still have minnow traps now. They'd go throw them in the creek, catch a couple of minnows with some bread or some dog food, throw them in a bucket and take them out fishing with them.
Yeah.
Everybody used to, that's what you do. They catch smaller fish and throw it back out there and see if you can catch a bigger fish.
Well, me and Todd was talking one day. We were sitting up there on the boat, and I forgot what got us on that subject. But Todd said, Wes, he said, I guarantee you. He said, if bait shops closed down tomorrow, he said it would cut the striper population up here in half. You wouldn't see nowhere near the people up here fishing as you do right now. They have to catch your own bait.
No, that's
the striper population would explode. You would see half of the striper fishermen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if somebody told me tomorrow, said, Wes, you're going to have to go out and catch bait when you go to Tennessee next week, or you're not going to be able to fish, I guess I'd be sitting here watching Netflix at the house.
Yeah, right. No, you would. You would throw a net. I know you would.
It's about like deer hunting. Half these guys around here, if the corn's right up tomorrow, they wouldn't know what to do sitting in a deer stand come fall.
Everybody thinks that Wes gives up a lot of information, and everybody thinks that Wes ask for information, and he's got all these friends that are these 1%er hardcore striper fishermen that are just so good, and they won't tell nobody nothing. But yet you see Wes on Facebook, like hanging out with them, eating supper with them, they just love Wes, and nobody can really figure out why. But Wes, if you did catch bait, your own bait, I don't think you'd have any problem finding out where the bait was. As many connections as you have.
Well, listen, we talked about this a couple of months ago on the show. It's helping people. I've had a lot of help. And I think, over the years, it was just I wanted to learn. I listen to what people tells me. Anybody that's better at me and what they do, and they're willing to teach me, I want to listen.
All right, I'm gonna teach you how to use a circle hook.
For years until this day, I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be. Everybody aggravates me. Todd Asher, if I put a 40, 45 pound, 48 pound fish, whatever on the boat, Todd Asher, Todd Asher's taught me stuff that's priceless. No, Todd Asher's not on the boat with me every time I go to Tennessee. But honestly, when I go to East Tennessee, I call Todd. Hey, you want to go fishing? And Todd comes and gets on the boat with me. And if he don't get on the boat with me, he'll say, hey man, I really don't know. I hadn't been fishing. You can try this, you can try that. I've learned biggest thing, Todd showed me how to fish for striper the correct way. He showed me a lot of different ways to fish in different types of water, different times of the year. Todd's not with me every time I go to Tennessee, but Todd has taught me a lot. Just like when I went to Chesapeake Bay, Chuck, Clint, all of them, they're not on the boat with me up there, but they showed me a lot. They told me a lot how to do this, and it's knowledge. All these great fishermen, they didn't just wake up one morning and go buy a fucking boat and start casting reels and bait and all of a sudden became great. Somebody showed them, somebody taught them.
Right.
You know,
And it's a lot easier. You know, you're a lot more likely to take in someone, you know, and give them knowledge and, you know, befriend them. And if it's someone that you know is passionate about the sport, they're doing what needs to be done. There are a lot of guys out there that they just want to go. They want to go catch a big striper, and they want you to tell them everything you know, just for them to go catch them a big striper, and you don't know what the hell they're going to do with that knowledge.
Yeah,
are they going to tell 50 million people? Or are they going to go on YouTube and tell the whole world? Or are they going to? I mean, what are they going to do with it?
You know, and I know for a fact, and I ain't gonna say no names, but I know a few people, you know, Todd, that really don't like Todd no more. That used to be good friends with him because he's helped me and he's helped a lot of other people, you know, the so-called out-of-towners, people that's not from Tennessee, you know, and he's just tried to help people. And a lot of them up there don't like it. And I can kind of understand that. But, you know, my home Lake Russell, anybody that comes down to Russell, if they're putting time in, you know, they're fishing a lot and they need some help, I'm going to help them. But like I said, at the end of the day, all it is a damn fish. And I'm not going to, you know, it's a fish is all it is. I don't give a damn if it's a striper, if it's a brim, it's a crappie, it's a fish.
Well, Junior, if I can talk Wes into coming down here and letting us and getting you to put him on a big old catfish, he'll probably take you and put you on a big old striper.
Well, the biggest thing, though, is, you've been in the boat, you know, 3 other people be in the boat with you, and there might be one guy catching fish.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down. I mean, you can tell
it's usually the guy on the back of the boat, on the port side back of the boat. It's like where all the fish come from for some reason.
Where the hot rod is.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. We could do a whole show on why that is.
Depends on if you're trolling. If you're trolling, you're going to come across 9 times out of 10. Them fish are a lot shallower than what you anticipate they are. When you come across the top of them, you're going to push and scatter. They're going to go. They're going to dive. You just happen to get fortunate. I've done realize, you know, watching what I've been doing. That's the biggest thing as far as using it for a learning tool. You don't realize how much of, like, especially this time of year. I mean, not crappie, bass, striper, catfish. They all live in that top 6 to 7 foot. And that's where the bait fish is. That's what they're doing. They're chasing, they're running, they're doing. And there's a lot of fish that live there.
Most, I'm saying catfish, striper, especially crappie. Fish are kind of like people. They want comfort. Where you've got comfort and food, that's what you're looking for. Every day we want comfort, we want food.
Right now, if they've got food at the same time this time of year with the rain, the water's stained. So when they slide up, they've got warm water, they've got food, they've got comfort, they can hang out, they're going to be warmed up, they're going to have a full belly. Those fish, they're not going to be 15, 20, 25 foot deep unless you push your boat through the middle of them and push them down. But then they're going to come right back up again because that's what they're basically, they're getting out of the way. And 9 times out of 10, long line, and that's all you're doing is you're pushing those fish out. And that's why those long rods on the outside usually go down first.
Yeah.
And if you don't get them, you find the ones, and as soon as they're coming back around, you got the other long rods out behind you. 9 times out of 10, you'll catch those fish when they come back around the boat and they go right back to their comfort zone. That jig happens to come through at the right time when they're coming in.
You know, that's another pro for the live scope, is because when you're trying to mark fish, I mean, how many fish are you not marking that aren't in that cone under the transom of your boat? You know,
exactly. There's always fish around. I mean, I cut my teeth for 2.5 years on long lining and fishing structure and all before I ever had live scope.
One thing I've noticed is crappie fishermen are some of the most well-rounded fishermen. You know, your papaw's a crappie fisherman, and he could go out there and he could do it all. You know, I knew an old man that he could go out and win about any bass tournament, but he was a crappie fish. He fished in an old tiller tin boat, and when you learn how to crappie fish, like I won a bass tournament. I got a trophy right here from a bass tournament that I got in at work back in 2013. And the only reason I won that bass tournament is because I knew how to crappie fish.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was I upsized everything, and I did the same thing I do for crappie, and I caught bass.
Yeah. You would be amazed at the amount of bass and just bycatch that I catch doing what I'm doing. I tell a lot of these bass guys, if you're fishing, that's where I think the drop shot and the shaky head really come into play, because them guys learn how to downsize to 2, 3, 4 inch size little worms.
That's right.
Working. And
right.
Everybody used to be about throwing them 8-inch trink worms and them huge creek tail poppers and buzz baits and everything else, and they learn finesse. You got to use
the first tournaments of the year in bass, when like February, and all these guys are using these big giant suspend and jerk baits, and it's usually the guys that's fishing the little 1/8 ounce with like a chartreuse curly tail grub that kicks everybody's ass.
The thing is, most of these guys, bass are like any other fish. Most of especially your bigger fish, they feed at night. By the time you get there the next morning, they've already got a full belly. They're not looking for a full meal.
Yeah.
They're just wanting a snack. So if you bring it by and it looks easy enough, who's going to pass up an Oreo cookie? You want an Oreo cookie or you want a McDonald's cheeseburger?
That's right. Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you'll eat the cookie before you'll eat the cheeseburger.
That's right. Yeah. Old snack.
Now, but now, like striper fishing, in the winter time, of course, fishing get lethargic over the water gets, so we really try to go the smallest bait we can. But me personally, the bigger the bait I can get on a hook, I don't use like when I'm cut bait in summertime, everything's a 10-aught Gamakatsu octopus J hook. I like to put the biggest bait that I can get on that hook where I've still got enough between that hook and the shank to get a hook in his mouth. The reason I like big bait is because I don't want a 15 or 20 pound striper no more. I'm looking for at least a 30, anything over 30 or better. So most cases, when I've got a piece of skipjack on there that weighs about a pound or a pound and a half, most of the time it's not going to be a small fish because he don't want to fuck with it. He can't get it in his mouth. He's not trying to eat nothing that big versus a big fish. I've always lived on that theory: big bait, big fish. In the wintertime, though, that's totally opposite. I've actually Shane Howington caught a 41-pound striper on a little old bit of. I had 6 thread fin in the bait tank. That water was about 44 degrees, and we just pitched one off the back of it. We had 30-pound braid on that line to a straight hook, to a little 2-aught hook, and it took us about 30 minutes to get that fish to the boat. But he nailed. We had trout out there like that. Let's see, where am I at in the screen here? We had, I think, some 8, 10, 11-inch trout, and pulled them all down there and didn't get a bite. We threw that little thread fin out there, and 10 minutes later, bam. So
there's definitely science. You got the whole elephant eats peanuts. You got the lethargic. You need to use smaller baits. Their metabolism, blah blah blah. I do believe in that stuff if you're going after numbers. But me being a trophy fisherman, I'm using giant baits. I don't care what year, water temp. I don't care. I'm using giant baits. And hey, if I miss a 50-pound catfish, that's fine. But I think that morbidly obese catfish that likes to eat at the buffet, the Chinese buffet every day, I don't think he's going to pass it up.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things, though. At the end of the day, most of your fish, we've all caught their eyes were bigger than their stomach. Yeah. And basically, there's certain times of the year that whenever those fish, especially striper, when you see spaghetti lines on the screen, they're going nuts. You can about throw anything down there. You don't really know what you're going to catch, but you're going to catch something. It's like catching, even largemouth bass. If you're throwing that, 6-inch jerk bait and you catch a half-pound bait, there's no way that fish is going to eat that, but he hit it.
Yeah.
I've always heard that you say that. It's funny you say that, Wade. When you're looking on a depth finder and everybody wants to see arches. Most cases, when that's fish, when you're marking fish in an arch, those fish aren't moving. They're
suspended and hanging out.
And they're probably not going to hit a whole lot. But like you said, when you see those lines at what we call spaghetti on the plate, those fish are moving. And most of the time when they're moving like that, they're eating.
When you have predatory fish that's going into feed mode, there ain't a whole lot you can't put in front of them. They won't eat.
Yeah.
Junior caught a 50-something pounder. I think it was Saturday morning, Saturday night or Sunday morning. I mean, the daggum thing was huge.
But and then we was talking about keeping bait alive and bait tanks, and at the end of the day, and this is just what, and God knows. Let's see, I've had Shad Shack, I've had Extreme, I've had SBT2, I've got a males, I've got 2 Shad Shacks out there now. But at the end of the day, like they said, that these tanks do not remove ammonia, and I think that's the biggest enemy in trying to catch bait. Or trying to keep bait is ammonia. But at the end of the day, if you've got a tank, Danco system, where a lot of people run oxygen, and it circulates that water and moves it, and if you get uncured bait, you got a lot of shit, and it filters the shit out of it. All these bait tanks are going to do the same thing. If they've got good aeration, like there again, everybody's talking about the Shad Shack tanks. Some of them leaked. Yeah. Hell, I've actually seen some of the other makers. I've heard they had trouble leaking, but if a tank's aerated right, you got your Dancos in there. You got your filters to filter your debris and your shit or whatever. At the end of the day, they're all going to do the same thing. It's just whatever you're comfortable with.
Junior caught that one on a perch, the size of your hand, Sunday night. That was night before last. He went out there. He caught in a cast net. He caught white perch. And he caught that on one of the sides of his hand. And he fishes where I fish. I mean, he catches much bigger fish than I do, though.
JR, I could hook a 20-pound striper up to that catfish and throw his ass.
Shit.
Pulling back.
Catfish, that'd be one dead ass striper, I'll tell you that.
Shit. Drown him. Hell, you could hook 3 crappie to that catfish and pull it backwards and drown him. Tell him, Wade.
Yeah, some of the ones I catch, you probably could.
Damn. JR, don't take that the wrong way, Mr. Warsaw. We're just giving JR Cochran a hard time.
Yeah. I think it's James. I think he goes by Junior.
Junior.
I have heard people call him JR, but I think he goes by Junior.
Yeah, and we've talked, Wade, we used to talk about this. It's like, the cat, you got a culture in fishing, catfish, striper. And now I think you've got pretty much a culture in the crappie fishing.
If catfishing was a country singer, we would be Sammy Kershaw.
Yeah.
We would be queen of my double wide trailer with the polyester curtains and the redwood deck.
You crappie is.
The striper culture to me was always, we got to have the most expensive boats. We got to have these big center console boats. We got to have the best rod and reels, and
y'all are like
bait tanks, and we keep this, and we catch big
y'all
fish.
are like Chris Gaines. Y'all are like or Train.
Now
she's back in the atmosphere. Thoughts of Jupiter. Whatever. You know what song I'm talking about. Yeah, that's y'all.
You know it by heart. Don't play it off.
Somebody made a statement one time talking about striper fishermen. Said we were just glamorized cat fishermen.
Your crappie and catfish guys were always your laid back community, and now that it's been infiltrated, I ain't gonna lie, money's got a big part of all of it, and it's got dollar signs in a bunch of guys' eyes. Even crappie right now is pulled over a bunch of bass fishing guys.
Yeah.
This right now it's in its infancy. It's young. They're trying to make a name. It's easy to get on board. Bass fishing's been solidified for decades now.
Yes.
It's a really, really hard racket to get into. Even striper fishing, I've done realized dealing with you striper guys, it's more y'all are at the mercy where they choose to host the event at it as anything.
Yeah.
Was it High Rock Lake or whatever? Everybody had a shit fit over whenever y'all decided to go do that one.
I ain't no y'all. I knew better than to go up there.
Yeah, but a bunch of guys, what was it, 10 pounds won it?
No, a damn hybrid.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, but stuff like that, you're at the mercy of the event. It's like, I don't know. It's that's a whole other subset. That's a whole other night's discussion to get into stuff like that. I don't know. It's a side of it that, I've thought about doing a couple of tournaments just to say I've done them. But at the same time, I decided, I'd rather do what I'm doing now. I have fun doing what I'm doing. It's not really
competitive.
I like competition. I like friendly competition. I like rubbing people, as far as, having fun, ribbing them, whatever. But the whole is, I don't know. It is what it is on that side. It's a whole different subset, mindset, culture that goes on.
Crappie and catfish we're like Leonard Skinner, and striper fishermen are like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
that's the guys that you're middle-aged, silver-haired, middle-aged, 401k drives Chevrolets with Duramaxes. That's the striper community. Bunch of dickheads.
Joey Moore said, "West catches fish if you can keep him away from the crown apple." Listen, the last catfish tournament I fished in down at Santee Cooper 2 years ago, we fished Monster Quest, and Michael Hanks, better known as Flop, here he walks down the boat ramp, and I'd done been drinking. I drunk a couple of shots, and here he comes down the boat ramp with a fifth of apple crown, and And this is about 2 hours before the captain's meeting. And me and him drank about 7 or 8 shots right there, and I was already about half lit, and I knew I shouldn't have did it. Needless to say, on our way to the captain's meeting, I passed out in Park 7's truck. I was drunker than hell. I couldn't even represent my team at the captain's meeting because I was in the parking lot puking. So,
but did you ever get to the point where you jumped out of a boat and had a moving boat come by your head?
No, not like they are.
Hey, that was fun.
Hey, I thought that was bullshit, and I said, Perry, you really gonna do this? Perry said,
you know, if I wouldn't have been shit faced drunk, that would have been a really good video. I mean, I had intended on making a good video, and then thanks, Perry.
Perry said, just watch his head, Wes. I said, I can't watch his head. You're driving.
What was that? That was him. Just keep going.
Well, yeah. I told him, I said, Perry, if you hear a thump, just head on to the truck. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we're not in Florida. That wasn't a manatee.
I tell you what, that was fun, man. Them boys took care of me. They took real good care of me. Heck, Scott took me back to his home, and I hung out with him and his wife. He cooked me a big old steak, big old T-bone. Fixed me a big old stiff drink.
Hey, we got up in the truck. Scott said, well, he said, listen, he said, the only thing, he was kidding though. He said, the only thing I know to do, he said, you get in his truck and I'll follow y'all, and we'll take him up there to the first rest area there on 85 and just let him sleep it off.
we sung karaoke, man, and we had such a good time. Scott even told me, he's like, man, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't really like you that much. He said, but drunk you is cool as shit.
He just has that mean for a cover up. He has to make up for being a Michigan fan. You can't blame him.
Right. At the end of the day, though, fishing, I have really made a lot of friends fishing. But you know, I just like hanging out with people. Like when I go to Middle Tennessee, 90% of it, I'm going to first see people I like to hang out with them and fish. Like when I'm going to Middle Tennessee, I'm gonna go twice this year. Chuck Tyman, one of my friends I met about 2 years ago, super guy. Chuck's coming up there, and I think JR is going to go with me. And there's going to be a bunch of people up there. They're going to be guys that I met 3 years ago up there from Oklahoma, Cheyenne, Upton. We call them the Oklahoma boys. And I think last year, at any given time, there was about 25 or 30 of us up there. You know, and everybody's calling each other, what's the fish doing, where are you fishing at, blah, blah, blah. And just a camaraderie, drinking liquor, cooking wings out on the back of the tailgate of the truck, video people while they're drunk and hiring Cooter Brown. You know, it's fun. We didn't even catch no fish last year. We fished 3 days.
You need to come on down here and go fishing with me and Junior on Lake Wiley if you want to have some fun.
No, we're talking about real fish, Junior. I mean, hell, I can catch catfish up there at
Junior. Wes keeps on bringing up this catfish he caught 27 years ago at Santee.
81 pounds. Have you caught one?
Oh my God!
Have you caught one?
Wes, let me tell you something. These guys are spending $80,000 for a sea arc. He has arguments over rods and reels. I can go right now and catch a catfish with my hand in a hole.
Damn.
You hear him talking shit, Junior? This is what I got to put up with, Junior. I have no catfish friends. None.
I'm just saying, I can go out here and feel around, go, up there's one sticking there. He bit it. There we are. Take a picture, throw him back in.
You can take a can of $3 chicken livers and a pair of 29-cent pantyhose and catch all the damn catfish you want.
Hell, I tried being friends with Dieter Melhorn and some guys.
Use the pantyhose to hold your chicken livers on so you can cast them.
He's too damn busy. And then I'm trying to get in with Junior and Matthew Goodell. You know, they catfish Wiley. I'm hoping I can get in with them boys. I'm tired of fishing by my damn self down here.
Well, if you just pull up and tie up to the back of their boat, they ain't got much of a choice but to fish with you. That's
right. Hell yeah. I done tried to take my drone out there and find out where the hell they was fishing.
JR, you might have got in. I believe you was on your way to getting in with Catch the Fever till you fucked up and showed that video of you breaking one of their rods.
Hey, I'll do that. I will do that. I tell you what, my motto is if you can't unconditionally love the worst JR, then you don't deserve the best JR. Because the best JR he's a bad motherfucker.
Well, I heard a guy say one time, There's no such thing. All publicity is good publicity, no matter what you say. And then I seen a video of two girls slamming one of their rods into a tailgate.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried that one yet, Junior? Or are you running out of rods yet?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Well, I tried bending the tip, like they do in that same video that they're doing the tailgate. They do the tip, and the Big Cat Fever, the black ones and the white ones, mediums and mediums, heavies, they will not do that. So don't do that; they will break. I mean, any fishing rod's going to break when you do that. I mean, it'd have to be a pretty noodly, glass heavy rod for it to not break.
Look, if you want to impress me, start at the end of your road, get to about 60 miles an hour, and whack your mailbox with it coming by.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. That'd be a good video. Wade. I've been thinking of how to do a good rod test video.
Damn, JR breaks them. He cuts them in half on purpose and splits them with a bandsaw. And damn,
yes, sir.
I ain't got that kind of money.
Well, I got so many rods. I only have left because I've cut some up, and I broke a couple. But I did buy some of the Big Cat Fever rods off Alibaba. I ended up giving those away. I gave them away. It didn't feel right I wanted the real thing, so. But yeah, I got 3 white ones and 2 white ones and 3 black ones with cork handle. And my white ones have the Eva foam handle. Those are my favorite, the white with the black Eva foam handles. But I'd like to have 12, 14 of them, but I have these Tika rods.
Cutting the son of a bitches up and trying to twist them and break them.
The thing is I have, before Big Cat Fever came out, I have 18 Tika rods, and they're very similar blanks with the hooded stainless guides on them, and they're well-made rods. They got the aluminum gimbal that fit into my tournament. My what do you call them? My 2 rod holders. They fit in there and they lock in. So I'm good on rods. I mean, I do love Big Cat Fever rods. I think that a lot of people complain about how they're like $100, but I don't know what world they've been living in. They must be new to fishing, because $100 for a rod like that is cheap as fuck. So they make good quality rod. I love their brand. I love what they're bringing to the industry. Kind of like Matthew Miles brought the Catfish clothing with the K. That was classy as hell. That was such a clean brand, clean logo. I don't know why that dumbass sold it, but he sold it to that dude in Virginia. And he's come out with this new brand called Honky. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And that's a whole nother thing. We're going to have him on the show to talk about that.
All right.
That's what, if you want to be elite, you got to start chasing trout and get you a G Loomis or what the hell's the other one they want to run?
G Loomis,
$400 rod,
Lama Glass.
Yeah, the ones they're just little 7'5" specific action. It's like $350, $400. That's just the rod. It's not a combo. That's just the rod.
Now, doing what you do, Wade, I like the Uncle Bucks and the
hey, Jay,
what do you call B&M? I like those B&M rods. What's that, Wes?
What's that rod Shimano makes? It starts with a T.
Travala.
I'm gonna get me 4 of them.
I mean, they're it's good graphite heavy. Right, I don't like them because I like a workman's. I like a work, like the equivalent of a work truck rod, fishing rod. I like something that I don't have to keep in a sleeve. If you got like Hovis and them, Team Shad Shack, Shane Reel, those rods that they use with those Calcuttas, they're so beautiful. They're gold, and he's got the blue rods. They're split grip. He's using split grip on a live bait setup, which is weird as hell. But anyways, it's a graphite heavy rod. It's like an IM8 rod. He has to keep the damn things in rod sleeves. You got to be careful with them. You got to I throw my shit in the floor. You go get on my boat, my rods are laying, all of them's laying right there in the floor. I step on them. I'm rough on them.
Yeah.
I can't have a rod that I have to take such good care of, because I would have to replace it too often. They wouldn't last.
Well,
yeah, my shit's strapped down to the front deck with a rubber bungee, so that's how I throw mine around.
Chuck Thomas has been catching 50-pound fish on them rods for years.
On the Travalas?
Yeah.
You can't beat the Travala's a very good rod, baby. You're going to pay for them, but they're a very good rod.
Piece.
Yes.
I'm
sure Chuck takes care of them.
Well, he's sponsored by Shimano. I don't think it cost him nothing, but he still takes care of his stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about the only Shimano rod I can afford is the Sojourn
You know, at the end of the day, though, across the board, I think Shimano has probably got the fishing industry locked down in rods and reels, in my opinion. I mean, I know Pure Fishing has got a lot of stuff out there, but Shimano's quality, there's nobody out there compared to their quality.
I agree. Yeah, Shimano is. Yeah, they're ahead of everybody. I mean, you can argue on some things like as far as value for money and a spinning reel. You're not going to beat that Daiwa BG spinning reel.
Yeah.
The rods, as far as like the jigging rods and the rod, like you were talking about the Travala, you're not going to get a better value. Even though those rods are expensive, you're not going to get a better value because they are awesome. They got Daiwa and all of them beat on those.
But now I love my Daiwa Soft, just 38 reels. I tell you, that's the best casting reel
I agree.
I've ever thrown.
I love them too. They're great. They're really, really good. I mean, those are some badass reels.
I can put a 2-ounce egg sinker on that bastard and throw it hard as I can, and I don't even have to put my thumb on it.
That's right. Yeah.
You just can't make it backlash.
No, that's right. Yeah.
That's the best. It's the best casting reel I've ever. And it's got 18 pounds of drag. $250 reel. You ain't gonna find nobody else that makes a reel like that for $250.
No, you're not.
And I've had these now for about 3 years. So
it is a lot of reel. I mean, you're going to pay $150 for a 6500. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what time is it?
Yeah, we've been an hour and 10 minutes. This show flew by. We've been having fun.
We kind of got a little off course, but damn crappie fisherman showed up.
No, hey, I mean, it was all fishing. It was all fish talk.
Wade Burdette's the man. Now listen, boy, he makes some pretty ass lures, don't he?
Yeah, don't blow his head up. He's gonna go back and watch this shit.
Oh, yeah, he came and gave me a when he come over to get his hoodie. He dropped me off a bunch of different, some hooks and some lures. I'm gonna try them.
See you, Joey.
I don't know who else. If Jeff Peel. I've still got your hoodie. I think I've got about 5 or 6 to bring to Middle Tennessee with me. So
I finally took what's his name?
Wade come over to the house and got his hoodie about 2 weeks ago and left with some jigs. I'll tell you, some pretty baits.
They are some pretty baits. Yeah.
That's my biggest thing.
You make any black soft plastics, Wade?
Hold on a minute. Wade tried to get me to get on his pro staff channel, but I told him I was too tied up right now with Shimano and Hook.
Yeah.
I told him I'd give him a 5% discount and a sticker, but he wasn't going for it.
Damn.
Yeah, all right, guys. Well, you want to call it, Wes?
Yeah, I'm kind of tired, but I had a long day today. But
thanks for coming on, Wade, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
Hey, let me know. I'm always around.
I'll school you on some crappies again, okay?
That's fine. I'll school you on some catfish again.
Okay. All right, boys. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week on Real Fisherman.
Hey, Wade, good seeing you, buddy.
You too, buddy.
Y'all be good.
See y'all.
Peace.